95 Pounds of Hope, Chapter 4. At home, the crisis went on for longer and was even more agonizing than usual. It was the end of June, and no junior high school was prepared to take me in September. My parents were racking their brains and tearing their hair out. As for me, I shrank a little further into myself with each day that passed. I told myself that if I became small enough not to be noticed, I might even disappear completely, and all my problems would disappear with me. I had been expelled on June 11th. At first, I hung around the house all day. In the morning, I would watch infomercials or QVC. They always have unbelievable things for sale. And in the afternoon, I reread old comic books or worked on a 5,000-piece jigsaw puzzle that Aunt Fanny had given me. But I soon got bored. I had to find something to do with my hands. So I started looking around the house to see if there was anything I could improve. I had often heard my mother grumbling about the ironing, saying that her dream was to be able to do it sitting down. I decided to attack the problem. I unscrewed the base of the ironing board, the part that stopped Mom from being able to put her legs under it. I calculated the height and I attached the board to 4 wooden legs like a normal desk. Then I took the wheels off an old cart that I had found on the sidewalk the week before and put them on a chair that we didn't use anymore. I even rigged an iron rest for the new iron she had bought. The whole job took me about 2 days. Next, I dealt with the broken lawnmower motor. I took it apart, cleaned it, and put all the parts back. It worked perfectly. My dad hadn't believed me when I said so, but I knew it wasn't worth taking it back to the garden center. All it had needed was a good cleaning. That evening at dinner, the atmosphere was less stormy. To thank me, Mom made my favorite dish, grilled cheese sandwiches, and Dad didn't turn the TV on. He was the first to speak. You know, son, the sad thing about you is that you do have talent. So what can we do to help you? You don't like school, I know, but school is mandatory until you're 16. Did you know that? I nodded. It's a vicious circle. The less you work, the more you hate school. The more you hate school, the less you work. What are you going to do? I'll wait till I'm 16, and then I'll get a job. You must be dreaming. Who on earth would hire you? No one, I guess, but I'll invent things. I'll make things. I don't need much money to live on. That's what you think. Of course you don't have to be rich, but you'll still need more than you realize. You'll need to buy tools, a workshop, a truck, and all sorts of other things. Never mind. For the moment, let's not worry about the money. That's not what bothers me. Let's talk about school. Gregory, don't make that face. Look at me, please. You won't get anywhere without a minimum of education. Imagine you invent some fantastic thing. You'll have to take out a patent, won't you? So you'll have to be able to write it up properly. And anyway, you can't just come up with an idea for an invention and bingo, you're finished. You'll need to draw plans done to scale with accurate measurements if you want to be taken seriously. Otherwise, someone else will steal your idea in 2 seconds. You think so? I don't think so, I'm sure. This bothered me. Somehow in all my confusion, I felt that he was right. But Dad, you know, I've got an invention which could make me and my children rich. Even you, maybe. What is it? Asked my mother with a smile. Promise to keep it top secret? Yes, they said together. Swear? I swear. Me too. No, Mom, say I swear. I swear. Well, it's this. Shoes specially made for people who go hiking in the mountains. Those shoes would have a little movable heel. You'd put it in normal position while you're going uphill. You'd take it off on the level ground and put it under your toes to go downhill. That way your feet would always be well balanced and hill climbing wouldn't be so hard. My parents nodded in approval. That idea of his isn't so dumb, said Mom. You should get in touch with the sporting goods store. I was pleased that they seemed to be taking an interest in me, but the spell was broken when my father added, but if you want to sell this marvelous invention of yours, you have to be good at math, at computer science, and economics. You see, we're back where we started. It's what I was saying before. Until the end of June, I kept myself busy doing useful jobs. I helped our new neighbors clean up their garden. I pulled up so many weeds that my fingers were swollen and green. My hands looked like they belonged to the Incredible Hulk. Our neighbors were Mr. and Mrs. Martineau. They had a son named Charles, who was only a year older than me, but we didn't get along. He was always playing video games or watching dumb TV reruns. And every time he talked to me, he asked me what class I would be in next year. It got to be more than a little irritating. Mom continued to call around trying to find a private school that would agree to accept me in September. Every morning we received tons of brochures in the mail. Photos on glossy paper boasted the merits of this or that school. They were all pathetic and completely untrue. I leafed through them, shaking my head, wondering how they had managed to get photos of the students smiling. Either it was bribery, or the kids were being told that their teacher had just fallen over a cliff. There was only one school I liked the look of, but it was too far away, somewhere near Valence. In the photos, the students weren't sitting behind desks smiling idiotically. They were in a greenhouse, potting plants, or behind a workbench sawing planks of wood. These students weren't smiling, they were concentrating. It didn't look bad, but it was a technical school. They'd never let me in. My stomach cramps returned without warning. Mr. Martineau made me a proposition. He would pay me to help him remove his old wallpaper. I accepted. We went to the tool rental shop and rented 2 steam wallpaper removers. Charles and Mrs. Martineau had gone on vacation, and my parents were working, so we were left in peace. We did a good job, but it was hard work. We were having a heat wave, and I don't need to tell you what it was like being in a steam bath when it's 90 degrees in the shade. It was like being in a sauna. I drank beer for the first time and found it disgusting. Grandpa Leon came by to give us a hand. Mr. Martineau was delighted. He said, "We are just laborers, but you are a true artist, Mr. Dubosc." So my grandfather pottered around, delighting in all the subtleties of plumbing and electricity while we sweated it out, swearing like troopers. Mr. Martineau often said, "Damus, damma, danum, damanamarum, damus, damus." It's Latin. Finally, my parents enrolled me at the junior high school just near our house. At first, they didn't want to send me there because it had a bad reputation. The teachers were terrible and the students got mugged for their sneakers, but since it was the only school that would accept me, they didn't have much choice. They handed in my school records and I went to get ID photos. I really look awful in those little photos. I told myself that the junior high school would be delighted with their new recruit, a guy of 13 in 6th grade, with incredible Hulk hands and a Frankenstein face. I was really some catch. July flew past. I learned to paper walls, how to apply the paste and fold the sections of paper properly, how to smooth down the edges with the roller, and get rid of air bubbles. I learned a lot of things. Today I can claim to be an ace at wallpapering with striped paper. I helped my grandfather to untangle the electrical wiring and try it out. Does it work? No. And now? No. Damn. And now? Yes. I made foot-long sandwiches. I varnished doors, changed fuses, and listened to comedy shows on the radio for a whole month. A whole month of happiness. It should have gone on forever, and in September I could have started another job with another boss. I was thinking of that as I tore into my salami sandwich. Only 3 years to go, and here I come. 3 years is a long wait. Then there was another thing that worried me, Grandpa Leon's health. He coughed more and more often and for longer and longer. He would sit down after the slightest exertion. My grandmother had made me promise to keep him from smoking, but I couldn't do it. He would say, "Leave me my one pleasure, Toto. I'll be dead soon enough." This kind of answer made me mad. "That's rubbish, Toto. You'll kill yourself with your stupid pleasure." He laughed. "Since when do you get to call me Toto, Toto?" When he smiled at me like that, I remembered that he was the person I loved most in the world, and that he had no right to die, ever. The last day of the wallpapering job, Mr. Martineau invited me and grandfather to a gourmet restaurant. They smoked a giant cigar each after the coffee. I didn't dare think how my poor grandmother would have tortured herself with worry if she had seen them. As we were about to go our separate ways, my neighbor handed me an envelope. "Here, take this. You deserve it, you know." I opened it right away. I waited till I was back home and opened it on my bed. I was absolutely stunned. I had never even seen so much money in my life, let alone had it in my possession. I didn't want to tell my parents because they would have gone on forever about how I should put it safely into my savings account. I wanted to hide the bills where no one in the world would think to look for them, and I began to rack my brains. I thought and thought and thought. What on earth was I going to buy with all that? Motors for my models? They cost a fortune. Comic books? A CD-ROM called 100 Things to Build? A Timberland jacket? A Boss chainsaw? Those four bills made my head spin, and when we closed up the house for August to go on vacation, I spent over an hour looking for a safe enough hiding place. I was like my mother, who was running around with her great aunt's silver candlesticks. I think we were both being pretty ridiculous. After all, thieves are always sharper than we are.